The result is endless color. It's kind of like a pulsating, but it's also negating form. I want no form, but basically you have a fusion of color. And to me, it's a clearing. I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and my father sold Ford cars, and my mother was a school teacher, but she retired to take care of 3 children. My grandfather would play the violin. I tried to play the violin, but I couldn't because I was left-handed. And for some reason, that was very difficult. So I learned to play the piano. And we had an upright piano, and the stool opened to some beautiful sheet music. And I couldn't read at the time, but I was very interested in those notes that were like letters. And that kind of association I made. I also would work on paintings in the attic. I clearly remember taking some old antiques and selling them without my parents' okay, so that I had more space. And they were devastated. But I wanted to paint, and it was early in my life. And so that was the beginning. I had a wonderful art teacher, Joseph Freibert. He talked about technique and how to apply technique. And he would have us take a still life and just use our eyes and follow a form. And I was very inspired by his teachings. My inspiration from early on in my childhood was small, intricate patterns and forms. The loop structure is what I developed. I felt that it really formed from microlinear work. In the 70s, I moved to California, but I also was very inspired by Jasper Johns and his clarity. And I've been a friend of his since the 70s. He came to my studio in California, in Venice. He came to the studio here in New York. We talked about technique. And I think most artists do that. We talk about technique. And from that, I went into language because I thought that there is a linear form of a letter. I think that when I lived in Colorado, I was doing landscapes that were turning into very abstract forms. And when I came to New York, I had the resources of so much more, and I gradually became an abstract painter. I think Rosenquist introduced me to a lot of forms that he was using in his large paintings. I've always been receptive to symmetrical patterns and color in nature, which has served as the fundamental material for my work. Intricate, microlinear, and repetitive forms in plants, insects, organic materials, and other personal objects and subjects inspired the choice in my work. the connection between my abstract paintings and my language work in various languages like Hebrew, Arabic, Korean, Japanese reside in their systems and the intuitive manner in which they are executed. The materials and the results are different, but they share a core that is essential to me, which is the poetry of abstraction. I believe my work has a spiritual depth of continual movement and evolves into a visual affirmation of optimism and hope for a different and refreshing way of seeing and being. And when I use language, I hear the letters as I write them. It becomes musical. And that is a wonderful way of being introspective into oneself. I'd like to quote something from Nicholas Collis, who was a poet and an art writer. And he wrote a book called Art in the Age of Risk. Does our life get repeated or remade? We want repetition in our fear that we and those we love will cease to exist. Repetition, which is a form of recreation, finds its most apt aesthetic expression in the ritual. By developing a pattern of repetitions, the ritual offers reassurance that the movement of life itself can be repeated. I was interested in color and gradations of color and what would happen if I graded a color and then arranged so that the loop structure would go a different way and there would be a fusion of color, like a whisper of color on a painting. They were very subtle. Some were very subtle, but I did find magic in that. But this work is coming from less from more. And the process of layering brush strokes begins with a large brush, and as you go smaller, you disintegrate you negate each process that was before. I think all my work comes from a concept, whether it be conscious or unconscious. I feel I'm in a world that is very complicated now. I mean, we have thousands of choices, and we have a continuation of wars. And I find that my work is a clearing of that. I want it to be a clearing, a more introspective view of oneself that hopefully a viewer might have seeing my work.